one podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering community for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast. The podcast where we delve into those salty mines of the Magic the Gathering community, find the saltiest stories, the saltiest posts that we love, put them in our minecart, and bring them right back up to you, our dear prospectors at home. As always, I am your host, Sam, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mike and Tony. Say hey, guys.
What up?
Hello.
And before we go any further, because I know we want to talk about other stuff, but we must pause now and thank our nice tier patrons, because they are nice.
Nice.
And this week we have Accidental TPK, Alex Balix, Crean Bean, Prime Speaker Florian, Dr. Black, and ZZ. And let me just say that you guys are extra nice, because I have been on paternity leave, and these folks decided to continue to support us through that, and we super appreciate it. That's right, everybody. I had a baby. And through the magic of backlog podcasts, you have not known that I was gone unless you follow us on social media.
And or noticed a minor dip in audio quality as Tony and I struggle to adapt to an updated version of Audacity that has all of the settings changed.
Yeah, a very minor change to the audio quality, maybe a really tiny minor change to the editing style. But if you don't have that keen of an ear, or if you're not me, then you probably didn't notice.
If you're not weekly editing an episode, then you probably didn't fucking notice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you probably did not notice. But yeah, now I'm back to recording, back to editing, back to doing podcast stuff. It's been a nice little month off, but I really miss the podcast shit. So it's great to be like back in it, man. I love it. I was like editing an episode the other day and I was like, oh, it feels so good.
And when you say month off, so you've been getting like really good rest and like eating super well. And
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean,
tons of free time.
Just so much free time. Definitely not like up all night, adjusting my entire life, adjusting my circadian rhythms really intensely. It's been, it's been really funny. My wife and I talk about having a newborn, and just real quick, we had a daughter. She's very lovely. We're super happy. Everyone's healthy. It's great. My wife and I were talking about having a newborn, and it felt like a combination of the early days of COVID and when you lose power in like a thunderstorm, because we're just like living our lives in this one room and just like watching tons of TV, marathoning movies, eating like garbage, and just sort of like camping out. Like it felt like I was camping out in my own house, And it was kind of fun. I mean, it is fun. It's very enjoyable. There's lots of ups and downs, and it's kind of crazy, but yeah, it was just a weird feeling. Like, I don't really know how else to describe it other than that.
Well, I didn't get the thunderstorm bit at piece or like losing power. And then as somebody who used to experience that quite frequently, and it was never pleasurable, I was like, why is this but now I understand.
To the rest of us, there's like a joy. There's like a little bit of like maybe not a joy, but like a romanticism to losing power. You're like, ooh, like gotta camp out, like eat all the ice
light
cream before
candles.
it melts. Yeah, light a couple candles. Let's play some card games in the dark,
Yeah.
So it kind of had that vibe, but we're like getting into a really good cycle now. Evelyn is finally like sleeping pretty regularly through the night, which we're amazed at, and continue to wait for the moment where she just does not.
What does that mean? Like 4 hours and then wakes up?
Like 3 to 4 hour stints, which is huge. Like in the early days, it was like 1 to 2 hours, and we just had like the madness. The madness was taking hold.
So what did you do? Would it be like one person does baby duties one night and then somebody does baby duties the next night? Like, what's the strat there? I like don't know. Is it better for one person to just do it for a week and then they're like on the cracking point, and then you switch. Like, what's the right methodology, or what was your approach?
So originally we like tried to do like shifts, right? We tried to be like, okay, you take over for this period. And then like my wife would do everything for like 4 hours. I would sleep. Then I'd wake up. I'd do everything. I'd like bottle feed her instead of like breastfeeding her. Obviously, I can't breastfeed my baby, but I do bottle feed her sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're like swapping
out.
duties, right? And that like drove me to the breaking point. Like I was like, because I was trying to convert to like a nocturnal schedule basically and like sleeping during the day. And it just made me like kind of crazy. I did manage to watch so much anime. I would just like I would just set up and like crack a Red Bull and have a bunch of snacks and just like rock the baby and just marathon anime all night. And I did that for like 5 days until I was like, I want to die. And Caroline was like, and we never hang out. We never see each other. Like, this sucks. So then we synced it, and now we just do everything together, and it's like way better. Also, as the baby gets older, you just have more time to sleep and shit like that, you know? Like it just gets better naturally. So
gotcha.
Yeah, we're in like a pretty good spot now with like sleeping schedules. I do go to bed at like 8 or 9 every single night now. We like wake up when the sun comes up and we go to bed when the sun goes down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It sounds like you kind of broke the bone to like reset it. It's like you totally messed your circadian rhythms up, and now you're like following the sun like a natural like normal human.
Literally. Yeah, we had to like rewire to the sun. And now, you know, old habits die hard. Like I still stay up late, but when I stay up late, I'm like, it's like, ooh, it's 11. Like I gotta go to bed, you know? Like, oh, this is too much. I'm passing out, man.
Well, I definitely remember in the early days getting some random Instagram reels at all hours of
just at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
One would come in at like 2, one would come in at like 5. And then...
Yeah, you could like map when I was awake by when I was just sending you guys unhinged Instagram reels.
And your level of delirium was it varied. Like you could tell as it got later in and Sam hadn't any sleep. You would also sometimes just be like, is this funny? I don't know. It is right now.
Yeah, my filter for sending you guys like really unhinged shit just like dissolves over time.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's some fucking crazy shit. Is this funny?
Bring it back.
Yeah.
It was good.
Like here's just like a picture of toast and it says get toasted. And I'm like, this is genius. Like, do you guys think this is great?
This is comedy gold.
Yeah. Oh man. And then as things were like evening out, I got to this point where we just fucking played video games like crazy. Like I picked up Death's Door at the recommendation of our buddy Andrew Rothbox. And that game was fucking awesome. Got big Tunic vibes, super fun. And then I realized that I'm a junkie for roguelite games. And I found Dead Cells. And I was like, I'll just play this game for 60 hours. Like, let's just fucking, 60 hours in like a week span. Like I was putting in shifts on that game. And now I've picked up a couple others. Like Scourgebringer is really, really good. And I'm kind of messing around with a few others. Hades, obviously, a classic roguelike. But man, so fun.
Well, my coworker just had a baby as well. And he said a very similar thing to me. And he was like, I actually haven't played video games in like a long time, but I've just been ripping on them. He's like, if you this is not what you should ever actually do. And he was joking, but he was like, if you ever want to play a video game, just have a baby, because then you'll have all the time.
just time that release.
Yeah.
Time of new video game release with a new baby.
Yeah. I think he said he played like all of Breath of the Wild because he was just like, I had so much time. I think he 100%ed it. And he hadn't played a game in like years. He said so to go from that to 100%ing Breath of the Wild just
That's
like
funny.
shows like you got time. You got time on your hands.
And it's funny now because like Evelyn's getting into a better cycle just during the day and at night. And she's like big enough where we can finally like wear her in like carriers and shit. So we're starting to like slowly migrate out of like the den that's on the second floor of our house. And like Caroline will go downstairs and do some like diamond art painting and crafts and stuff. And I'll go up to the third floor and strap the baby on and do some like editing and shit. Yeah. And it feels like a return to normalcy, as normal as you can get, but you do live life in 3-hour chunks, which is an interesting way to live. And the days fucking fly by, man. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
How old does she need to be before like she can support her own head? Like what's the timeline on that? Because that's like a big milestone, right?
Yeah, that's a big milestone. So it kind of varies. Like usually it's like 2 to 3 months.
Oh damn.
Sometimes you see like a little bit of it pretty early on. Our baby is like weirdly strong and she can already hold her head up. It's
One Punch Man.
Yeah,
Strong,
dude.
strong baby.
She's One Punch Baby.
We like swaddle her up and she like busts out of it. She's just like and fucking like busts out. And we're like, why are you so strong? Like, what the fuck? We're like, why are you so fucking strong? What happened? So she's just, I don't know, man. She's gonna be like an athlete or something. We're already planning to buy like a baby leash so that she doesn't scamper away from us. But yeah, it's super cool. She's wicked cute. I'm very tired all the time, but super excited to get back to the podcast because you know what? You know what, guys? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Nice. Insert audio clip now. Hopefully, Sam in the editing room still.
Yeah, probably still me there.
Yeah. I can easily admit that I fucking hate editing episodes.
You don't say.
I like it. If it could take like 20 minutes, it would be
Oh.
great.
Fuck yeah. Hell fucking yeah. If it did take me 4 fucking hours, like sitting there to still fuck it up, and then have you guys be like, it's wrong. And I'm like, great. I just wasted fucking 4 hours of my goddamn
Oh
life.
man, that was very funny when that happened.
What I was gonna say was it's really the feeling of having it be done is always nice. Like you've
Oh,
assembled something really nicely, which
You
I
feel
guess
accomplished.
since we keep touching it after you edit, you don't get to feel that, Tony.
Nor does Tony know what we edit or how what we're actually cutting out.
I think it also would be different if it was like someday when the podcast is making $1 bazillion. Like I would do this if it was like the only thing I was doing 1,000%. But it's like on my like Friday, Saturday night, I'm like editing the episode, feeling
Yeah.
good, and then it's trash, and I'm like, all right, I'll just go fuck myself. Like, why did I do that?
It was never trash, Tony. It was always good. You'd
That
always
first
done
one
good
sucked.
things
I'll
to it.
tell you that much. That first one.
I wish you heard the OG audio though, because
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
It's
I
out
really
there.
did do like
We could play it
I
side by
spent, like,
side.
5-6 hours doing that fucking edit. Everything's shit, whatever.
It's
I don't
it's
like
an
it.
experience
I don't really
thing,
wanna do
man.
it.
I will say, for me, being the person who always does the
Yeah, I
editing,
mean, I've got like 20 hours total. You've got like hundreds
Yeah.
of hours. Like there's
Definitely,
a distinct
like-
difference.
and I
Like,
also have like a little mini keyboard that's all just shortcut keys, so I can edit at like lightning speed. But it was very cathartic for it to take you guys a really long time. I was like, see how hard I work.
I never
we
thought
knew
you
it was
didn't
going to
work hard
happen.
on
We
it.
never doubted it. That's why we were so happy to let you do it.
It does make me want to do like a behind the scenes sort of like how the sausage is made kind of thing for the
Mm.
patrons at some point.
well, I think the thing that like gets easy to lose is time. You can spend a long time on 15 minutes. And
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you don't even fucking realize it. Like,
You can spend a long time on 30 seconds.
all of a sudden I'd look and an hour went by and I was like 15 minutes into the episode. I was like, what the fuck am I
Yeah.
doing right now?
But that's not that crazy. Like
Yeah.
that's just 4 times, right? So if you're listening to one part and you're going to make a change to it, you hear it, you're like, okay, I want to change it. You probably listen to it again to be like, okay, what's the change I'm going to make? Then you make the change. You listen to it. It wasn't quite right. So you make one more
So you
change and then you
undo it
listen
and
to
then
it again.
change.
And that's then been 5 listens to the same chunk of audio.
Yeah.
So if that's a 30-second chunk of audio, there you go.
Anyway, we're getting into the sauce. But
Yeah,
like,
this is already
we just were like, we're not going to get into the sauce, but now we're getting into the sauce. Sometimes when I put sauce on shit, it's
Ew.
salty.
Gross.
Why are you saucing shit?
Why are you eating shit?
Oh my God, you guys are the fucking worst.
Disgusting.
You're the one that said it, man. I don't
Yeah.
know what to tell you.
Somebody had to bring us around.
And a foul mouth you have. Yeah. I mean, sometimes when Tony, sometimes when you're editing and you make a mistake and you don't read Discord till 2 hours later and you realize that we tried to help you and you have to redo the whole thing. I bet that makes you
I'm fucking editing an
pretty.
episode and it makes noise.
I bet it makes you pretty salty.
I was salty as fuck. I was so fucking mad. I wasn't even salty. I was mad.
Yeah, you were just really mad. I had to like text you in the real world and be like, dude, read the Discord, please. There's a disturbance in the force.
Please, bro.
I'm sensing something bad is happening right now. Please read the Discord.
And there was a disturbance in the force. And I transitioned to the dark side fully.
Oh fuck.
Oh fuck. But wait.
Yes.
What is salt, Sam?
Great question, Tony. Salt is frustration in the game, as we like to say. It's really an umbrella term, how we use it here on the Howling Salt Mine. Salt is anything that's going to get you frustrated in a game of Magic the Gathering, anything that's going to get you irritated, pissed off. It can be an internal salt where you just kind of sulk a little bit. Maybe your shit just keeps getting removed. You can't get a foothold in a Commander game, and you're like, why am I even playing? What am I even doing here? Or maybe you're about to win and you're tasting that victory and someone just hits you with the mana tithe that you never expect. And you're just like, motherfucker, I got to respect it though. The mana tithe move is always good.
The mana tithe moments are definitely probably the most salt inducing. Like if I left one mana up, especially if you had like a big X spell or something, you didn't need to do it all.
Dump it all in.
A lot of times I'll leave one mana up now. Just even nobody's even fucking playing white, and I'll leave one mana up because I'm like, I just don't want to get mana tithe. Oh my god.
Getting pub stomped, power mismatches, weird energy, weird people at your LGS. All of these things can make you salty. And we're going to talk about all the different types of salt on the show so that we can educate ourselves about salt and hopefully not be salty in a future game of Magic the Gathering. It's an edumagicational podcast, as we like to say.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I have 3 lovely salty stories here. Are you guys ready to dive in?
Born ready, baby.
Yes.
All righty. Let me pull up this first one here.
Actually, already dove in.
We're doving on
We're doving
veto. Bond right in. Is that really his last name? Dovin Bond?
Yeah.
Hey, what's Dovin's favorite sandwich?
Veto?
A Bond me.
Oh, just kidding. I got you. It was almost funny.
Thanks, dude. I'll edit in a laugh track.
A laugh track.
So that people know that it is funny. I'll edit in so that fake laugh.
Know.
I'll edit in that fake laugh that you did and like 20 episodes ago that I just keep in my back pocket for moments just like this.
Ha 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 ha.
All right, this first salty story comes to us from our buddy Jacob. And this is submitted on our website, our lovely website, thehowlingsaltmine.com or howlingsaltmine.com. We are inconsistent with the, so both of those are going to get you there. We have a lovely form on our website that you can fill out to send us your salty story, which we would love to hear. Send it to us, please. And this post is titled, If a Tree Falls in the Forest, Does It Go to the Graveyard? Interesting.
I like that title.
I like that. That's great. Really makes you think. What's the sound of one hand clapping, And the story goes, Greetings, lovers of salt. I recently discovered your podcast after you had Andy and Kyle from the Legendary Creatures podcast on.
Nice.
Hell yeah, we love those guys. Since then, I have fallen deep into the mine and I am loving every minute of it. My salty confession, fuck yeah, I love a salty confession, takes place several years ago when I first got into the game. It continues to be my saltiest game of Magic, and it was a pivotal moment for me, changing how I interact with my fellow players. My wife and I started playing Magic around War of the Spark, and it quickly became a weekly ritual to sit down and play. I got my little brother involved, and soon we started playing Commander, typically in a 3-person pod. I was desperately trying to find someone for our 4th. Luckily, my older cousin had recently moved to town, and he was familiar with the game and had his own deck. This was perfect. I could play this newfound game and spend time with family at the same time. I couldn't have asked for a better scenario. This is very, foreboding.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop here.
Yeah, waiting for the shoe to drop. Yeah.
Yeah, the shoe. It's going to drop any minute now.
That shoe, dude.
Wait for that shoe to just
waiting
drop
for
on
it.
in.
You guys know what I'm waiting for here?
I think there's a shoe to drop,
for something to drop.
What
I think something's going to drop.
What's
a
gonna drop?
shoe.
Oh, shit.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
When When my cousin, it's so stupid. When my cousin joined our pod, it started out great for the first few weeks. We would get beer and pizza and sling spells almost every weekend. However, one fateful night, everything came crashing down.
The
shoe
came
probably
crashing down.
My cousin was playing his new Omnoth Locus of Rage landfall deck and had just animated one of his forests with Nissa, who shakes the world. When we went to combat, I lightning bolted the animated land.
Uh-oh.
As he proceeded to remove the +1/+1 counters, he put the land back with the rest of his lands. I explained to him that because his land was a creature, it would go to the graveyard. And he explained to me that that wasn't how it worked because it was still a land. Now, at this point in time, I was still relatively new to the game, but I knew enough to know that I was right. Of course, my wife and brother.
Good.
Classic.
Good.
I love that.
They know that they're right too, though. Is the problem here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, two people both thinking that they're very right. Of course, my wife and brother didn't know who was right and decided to stay out of it. Classic. This then caused a 10-minute argument, in which my cousin and I were trying to look up the exact rules text explaining the interaction because he wouldn't believe what I found on Reddit. When he couldn't find the evidence to back his argument, he asked me why it even mattered. This was the salt that broke my back. I blew up on the table, yelling about how a game is only a game if you abide by the rules and how lands are resources that allow you to play the game, and he shouldn't have animated his land in the first place if he wasn't willing to lose it.
Oh, boy.
The point is that I totally let the salt get to me and completely lost my cool, ruining the game for the whole table. My cousin scooped up his cards, and the game and the evening were over. While this wasn't the last game night for us, it did unfortunately leave everyone a little salty with me, and soon after the weekly get-togethers came to an end. My brother lost interest in the game, and my wife and I now only play every so often. My cousin and I have reconciled, but we no longer play Match together because things seem to always get heated between us. Since then, I have found a new play group, and I have learned to just let things go. Now I prioritize keeping the game as fun and easygoing as possible. However, I often wonder if I would still be playing with my family pod if I would just have let my cousin keep the damn land. Thanks for reading, and thanks for making such a great podcast. Well, thank you, Jacob. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. This is a great story.
This is awesome. Yeah. I love this one.
I mean, it's tragic. It's sad.
You don't let him keep the fucking land because
he can't keep the land.
He was wrong. And someday he's gonna go to somebody else and then do the same thing, and he's still wrong. Like, you can't spread wickedness like keeping lands that are dead.
Yeah,
land goes to the yard, baby girl. Like,
yeah, it's almost sad that that's the takeaway, that you should have let the land stay, because it's really more of like, just find that safe way that the land goes to the graveyard, but your pod doesn't go to the
graveyard. I also just love how the cousin was like, okay, I'll just take the +1/+1 counters off then.
Yeah.
Like that's feels like such a magic newbie thing too, where it's like, yeah, I'll take off these life points that are on my land and it converts back to regular land. It makes sense, right?
Yeah. I also think I would say, as a shout out, an easy, quick resource that usually is pretty fast is it MTG Judges? There's like a website that you can go to that just has like actual judges in it where you can ask questions. If you're having a hard time finding rulings.
It's chat.magicjudges.org.
Yes.
There's just like a live chat that judges are active in, and you can dump a question in there and they'll give you like a ruling on it.
And like literally within a couple minutes, like usually seconds, somebody will respond.
Yeah. Definitely within the 10-minute argument that you had over it.
For sure.
But also, I want to shout out Reddit, man. Like, Reddit has a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of good and bad things.
It usually does have the answer.
Generally speaking, if you look up an interaction on Reddit, if the post has enough people responding to it, even like 5 to 10 people responding, the right answer is probably in there.
Yeah.
Because the Magic subreddits, love them or hate them, they will not stand for someone being incorrect with ruling. That person will be shouted into the ground, and you will find the correct ruling in those spaces. Like, the cream rises to the top, and it's not always that I compliment Reddit in general, because there's some corners that are pretty stinky. But man, like, that is the thing for it. Often we will Google the interaction and I'll put Reddit on the end and look for the Reddit post because that's probably the fastest way I'm going to find the interaction. Like someone has thought of that question in the past.
Most likely, yeah. But there's a lot of resources out there that you can use to like point to like this is the correct thing, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just knowing where to go look and how to find them so that it doesn't turn into this long thing. Because I'm sure that just made it all more heated because each of you is like, well, I'm right. The other ones were like, no, I'm right. And you're going back and forth, and then you're getting more upset because you're like bickering about it. And you're like, then you're like, I found things.
Like, listen to me, you stupid motherfucker.
Yeah.
And you're struggling to Google search, which never feels good, not finding your answers when you're trying to look for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a hard one for me to really read because I'm that guy. I'm the dude that'll be like, well, let me find the ruling because I will not continue a game if there's a rule wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it in a pretty harsh way. You killed the buzz of the game night, but I agree. A game is only a game if you abide by the rules. And keeping a land is a benefit. Granted, it's a pretty laid back, casual game. Like you probably could have let it go by and it wouldn't have mattered. I agree there. Like it could have been fine to give it a pass. But at the same time, there is a way to have that conversation where you don't get heated and your cousin learns from it. And I think that's the takeaway. The takeaway isn't to be like, just let people bullshit the rules as long as they're having fun. The takeaway is to be like, change how you message in those moments and change how you bring that stuff up. Maybe you do let it go in the game and you talk about it afterwards. Maybe you're just like, hey, like I can find this ruling really quick because because I know where to look now. And you just look it up super fast and you keep going. Or we say, well, let's just assume it's this way and then we'll rewind a little bit if I can find a ruling in the next couple minutes, just keep the game flowing.
I think you made a great point also about like waiting until after the game. Like sometimes if a game gets stuck on a decision, you're just like, okay, let's make a call and move forward and we can figure it out at the end of the game. That is like one way of de-escalating because you got to remember you're there to have fun. You're there to have a good time. Like that good conclusion was reached by Jacob here of like, focus on, having the good time, but postponing the decision until after the game can be okay if you really can't like find an accord. But one of the things that I really like as a method to reframe this thing from a debate, because I remember that was like when I was first starting to play Magic, I was in high school and the game was 50% finding cards to go in your deck and then playing them, and 50% debating because none of us knew how the rules work. And every single little interaction seemed to matter like a ton. And we spent like entire nights just not knowing how priority works and being like, well, he said it first, so he gets to do it. So just like if you recast it as a joint search for the truth in what's supposed to have happened in that moment, you can be a team in searching for the answer instead of adversaries in it. And that can help make it less painful in the moment. Someone's still going to end up right, but that's sort of like secondary after the fact.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like let's solve this problem together, versus like, shut up, idiot. Your land is dead.
We have a mystery and let's figure it out. You're wrong, an idiot, and I killed your land.
Put that shit in the bin. Interesting. What do we think about the salt rating here on this one?
It's really sad to me. And the salty situation itself is like a classic situation that happens, I feel like, almost to everybody in their journey of Magic, of getting in a disagreement about the rules, having a different understanding, and it being important enough to how the game goes that it's frustrating to different people wanting different things to happen. But the real sad thing in this is like the cut early line of this nice family pod of playing games. Like
went from Zon beers to nothing.
Literally.
Exactly.
And also like you were all learning the game together. It sounded like you were all like similar experience levels. So, like what could have been this pod that grew together and kind of learned stuff together. But with that, there's growing pains, and I had my fair share of that too when I was starting to play Magic, where I've been the person who's unfortunately shouting down somebody because they're fucking wrong and I'm salty about it. And I've also been the person who's vehemently defending the incorrect bullshit and getting really mad about that too.
Yeah.
So like, Yeah, I think like the true salt here is the loss of the pod. It's that kind of salt that sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and you think about it and you're just like, man, the mistakes of the past, what could have been? What could have happened?
I know we're in salt ratings already, but what do you guys think about this concept of like, I just can't play with one person because we always end up at each other's throats? That's kind of how this concludes, right? Like Jacob makes amends with his cousin, but knows that like it gets heated whenever they play. Do you guys have anyone that's like that? That like if you play with them, you just always get a little fired up?
Yes, definitely. I definitely do.
I don't think necessarily about magic specifically, but I definitely have people who that exists like in my life where it's like, even if it's like friendly, I'm still like, ugh, this fucking person. I just can't. I'm thinking of him right now, and I'm like, God, like, can't fucking do anything with that person because somehow it always ends like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I just have some people in my life that like our personalities rub the wrong way, and we like tried to be friends in the past and it just didn't work out. And now, you just keep them at arm's distance and it's like, well, it's just not going to work out. I had it with a lot of like old coworkers where I was like, this person's a great friend at work, but God help me if we're working on the same fucking project because I'm going to go ballistic on them because I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because I've had that in play groups before too, and I've resolved it. And usually when that stuff happens, it's not about the game. Like there's something going on between you and that person, and it has nothing to do with Magic the Gathering. Like you and your cousin need to sit down and like squash personal beef and get back to the game. Like there's something going on where you got like shit colored glasses when it comes to that person, and they're just like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they're breathing too loudly for you. You're like,
literally.
Well, how about another one?
I would love to read another one. Let's hit it.
Indeed.
So this one comes to us from one of our patrons, and this post is titled "My LGS Kinda Sucks." and this is from our patron Type Null. Thanks, Type Null. And the post goes, "Sorry for the long story, but I had to share. So this all starts because my playgroup is slowly disbanding. Sad face, sad emoji face.
Tragic."
I made a sad real life face when he read it, so
probably sad emoji faces and real life faces. Graduating college, getting jobs in other cities and whatnot has started to take its toll on our playgroup. So people have started to move, and we don't get many games in with the other 4 people that we have. So I've started to go to our LGS for some Friday night magic with someone else in our playgroup, Renan, just to scratch the itch for the week. And to start off, our LGS has a bad rep for housing a bunch of sweats and tryhards since it's one of the 2 LGSs in my city. Pretty much everyone plays trash magic, but doesn't want to actually play CDH. Nice. Hey.
Nice.
Yeah. Everyone's pushing the envelope with their powerful combos. And you're like, can you just play CDH? And like, no. I'm not cool with that. Anyways, Thassa's Oracle on the stack. This is my second week playing there with the other person from my pod, and we get a 4-player game going, but somehow stop it and pull a 5th person in. Already a bad start. I agree because I just want to get some games in. There's only 2 things that matter from this game. Number 1 was Brennan's rampant growth got mana drained by someone in the pod. I do my fair share of throwing some hate Brennan's way from time to time, but I was high-key pissed for him. I tried to politic with the person who threw the mana drain out, but they insisted so that they could get his new Obeka out next turn. I kept trying to tell him that he should save it for something else and that he should let people ramp since it was only turn 3. He wanted it to resolve still, so we let it happen. But that left some salt in my mouth. Number 2. So we're nearing an end point of the game around turn 7 or 8, where the Obeka player has only been able to play Obeka since the mana drain because he wasn't drawing any lands. Well deserved. It says in parentheses. The Pantleza player was doing Pantleza things, cascading dinosaurs, as we all know and love, and was probably going to win on his next turn if there were no board wipes. He had a Polyraptor out and had quite a few tokens of it already. He ends up tutoring for a marauding raptor, and I ask him if he knows it will infinitely loop with Polyraptor since he doesn't have a sack outlet out or anything to stop it and no one else can stop it. Deja vu. Sam from the editing room, if you can fucking remember us, put in a clip here from when we talked about this interaction in a previous episode. Hey friends, this is Sam from the editing room. We talked about the Polyraptor Marauding Raptors combo back in episode 82, Unintended Infinite, Weighted Clothing, and Brothers War. So go check it out if you want to hear us talk about that a little bit more. He responds with, yeah, I know. I'll still win the game though. I tell him, no, it will be a draw because it will just infinitely loop since he doesn't have any burn either. There's no damage coming out, nothing. He responds with, well, it's a moral win in my books. I was salted enough at this point, so I respond with, well, you must have some shitty ass morals.
Oh, shit.
To end the story, I ended up leaving after this game because I was so irritated with this guy and couldn't find another table to play at. The week before, I was also playing with some other people that just got salty and complained about tiny things happening. In the end, I know my LGS has sucky people and is making it hard to keep going there once my playgroup officially disbands. Whew. Got a couple things to talk about here.
It is a moral victory.
I was gonna say moral victory is to start.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to? Yeah, let's start with the moral victory. It's fresh on our minds here.
If I end the game, I have won a moral victory.
You think?
I
Really?
think I agree. I think if I
do
had it
think
and
so.
could do that, I would do that. Especially if it was like a longer game.
In a casual game,
Yeah.
in a casual game. If I don't have a way to actually win, the second way I can win is by ending the game.
I can see that. I think there's a way you message it though. I don't know if I would.
I don't know that I would call it a moral victory.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
that's
I would say
true.
it's a moral victory because, like, what morals are going on?
I'm thinking it though. I'm definitely thinking it.
I don't know if it's a moral victory, but it's definitely a way to end the game. And you chose to end the game, and so there's like some power there. There's some control there, but like, I don't know if it counts as a moral victory, man. That moral victory is, I don't know. Like, I don't know what moral victory really is. Like, you have the board wipe and it's 3 hours into a game and you choose to not cast it and you lose. And you're like, yeah, well, you might have won, but I have the moral victory because I didn't prolong the game for another hour.
They would have it there.
But like, I feel like that's the moral victory. I don't know. It really depends on, like, it's turn 7 or 8. That's not super long into the game just to end it. That's a weird one.
To be honest with you, I'm surprised this isn't bothering me, but I'm kind of into it.
I feel similarly, actually.
Maybe I need to make a deck that I only draw it, and it's got that card from the salty card list that we had a while back. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, the one that ends the game in a draw.
Yeah,
The fuck is that?
some white card, I think.
Oh, divine intervention?
Yeah, divine intervention. Yeah. For people who don't know the Polyraptor Marauding Raptor loop, it's a loop that makes infinite Polyraptors, and there's no way to stop it because like it keeps taking damage as like the next token comes in, so it makes another one. So in any game of Magic the Gathering, if there's an infinite loop that can't be stopped, the game ends in a draw. It's like a loop that can't stop it. The game shorts out. No one can do anything. It's over, you know, unless you can stop it.
There is no infinite. We always, as Magic players, talk about, oh, like I have an infinite combo, I have a this, that, the other thing. It's like, oh, I gain infinite life. Like, no, you can't. Like you can only gain a number of it and choose to close the loop.
Yeah.
To progress the game.
And if you start the loop and you can't close it, the game just ends.
Yes.
It's just done.
And in doing so, you achieve a moral victory, is what we've learned here today.
I will say, I think maybe it is a moral victory in this situation because it was a 5-player game, and 5-player games kind of suck.
Definitely a factor that must be brought into this.
They were also the player that got their ramp spell mana drained, right?
No, that was OP's friend Brennan.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I thought it was the player that had their early ramp mana drained that then came in with the draw. Which seemed more fair. That would have been a moral victory.
That would have been a moral victory, especially if it was the same game. It's like, well, you fucked up my early thing. I'm just going to end the game and nobody wins.
What do you guys think about the mana drain portion of this?
Oof, man, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Insert audio clip here since
So many today.
I know, at least 2.
It's because it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been some time since I've talked about Mana Drain. Let me read it. People might not know what it does. So Mana Drain is a blue instant. It costs 2 blue mana to cast, and it says counter target spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of colorless mana equal to the spell's value. So it is essentially a counter spell, 2 blue to counter something, no conditions, but you have this added benefit of ramp on your next main phase on top of it. The problem with Mana Drain is that so often it is seen as a ramp spell and not a counter spell. And because of that, when you are the player with the Mana Drain in your hand, you're going to counter some stupid bullshit that's inconsequential to get the mana on your next main phase, and you're going to piss off somebody in like the process of doing that, you know? Like countering a rampant growth gives you 2 mana. Like it's pretty inconsequential, but it lets you play your commander a turn.
Soul Ring for a turn.
Yeah, it lets you play your commander turn early, right? So
yeah.
Like I think that Mana Drain, it's one of those counter spells that burns a hole in your pocket and you're looking for that moment where you can just pop off with it, counter something, get the value, and keep moving. And it doesn't really matter if it's a rampant growth or if it's a fucking Sakura Tribe Elder or like a Dark Steel Ingot or whatever. Like, who cares? You're just countering something to get the mana, you know?
Yeah, you're playing a ramp spell and your opponents are experiencing a counter spell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. As long as the spell's at least 2, you're going to counter it. Like, you don't fucking care. Like, as long as they play a spell that is 2 mana at least.
Yeah. Early game. Like late game, you might hold on to a Mana Drain for your like actual counter spell kind of stuff. But early game, it's a ramp spell in the blue player's hands.
Yeah.
Fuck blue. Love Mana Drain. I saw a Mana Drain 2 days ago.
In a game?
On the street? On a corner?
No,
you just like picked up a Mana Drain on the...
in a game. And it was... Never feels good.
Oh, so you really saw it? It like hit you?
No, it didn't hit me. It actually did feel good because I saw it hit somebody else as a meal, and I liked that.
Nice. Hey, there you go. Yeah. See, that's a good use because a meal's a combo piece. So
yeah.
You know, it's a really interesting thing about Mana Drain that I learned the other day for the first time. If you counter something that is uncounterable, you still get the mana. Did you know that?
Because it doesn't have an if you do.
Yeah, because it doesn't have an if statement in it. So you counter target spell, and then at the beginning of your next phase, you add an amount of mana equal to that spell's mana value. So one of the rulings is if the target is legal but not countered, most likely because an effect says that the spell can't be countered, you still add the mana.
Interesting.
So a lot of people do this with their like Hullbreaker Horror, because Hullbreaker Horror can't be countered. It has flash, so you can dump it in on someone else's turn. It's 7 mana. So it still comes out. And then you ramp 7 mana on your next turn. It's a very spicy play. I forget where I learned about this. Maybe it was another podcast or something. But
interesting.
That's a little trick that you can all the good kids at home can keep in their back pocket.
Well, what do we think about the salt rating then here on this one?
Really, it's assault in 2 parts, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
In 3, sort of, because there's the overarching salt of the fading of the pod.
Ooh, that's just sad. You know, that's just like, you know, Siri played Graduation by Vitamin C.
Yeah.
Kind of sad.
Alexa played Despacito. Kind of sad.
Yeah. Like, as we go on, we remember all the times we spent together, you know? Yeah. I mean, it just sucks when your play groups grow apart, man. Like, it just sucks when friends grow apart in life. Not to get real deep here.
Whoa, dude.
I think everybody experiences that at some point or another, and it's always a bummer when people grow apart and people move away and you lose those tight friend groups and stuff. Even worse when it sends you to a really shitty LGS that's full of sweats and tryhards.
Yeah.
Personally, I would say the Mana Drain would make me really fucking pissed off. My rampant growth, like, give me a fucking break, dude. And then it would make me even more pissed off because they did nothing that game, because they didn't draw any lands, and it's like 6. So you countered my shit just to get at your commander and do nothing for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I wonder if that literally means they didn't even have enough mana to play their commander if they didn't use the Mana Drain.
Probably.
That might mean that they kept like a 3-land hand and needed to Mana Drain to get the 4th for Obeka.
Probably, dude. Like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's not that bad. 3 of your 7 being land. Or
I guess
mana of some variety.
Yeah, but not being able to cast anything else is pretty bad.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's true.
That.
I'd keep a 3-lander on Obeka. Yeah, and then the draw. I mean, I don't know. That's a weird one. I don't think that's super high salt, because sometimes 5-player games I am just looking for a way out. But on top of the overarching salt of my playgroup is disbanding, I have to go to this gaming store that I don't really love. There's this weird play earlier in the game where my friend got his shit countered, and it kind of made me salty and, put a little damper over the evening. And then that game ends with just you being like, hey, you know that this is just going to draw the game and it'll be an infinite loop. And the other person being like, nah, it's actually a win though. And you're like, that's not fucking how it works. Like, I don't know. It would get me salty, man. It's just like people being chaotic.
I think I'd like it. That's all I know. I can't lie.
You are an agent of chaos, man.
I know, that's why.
Yeah. I like it if the player has no other way of winning. If a draw is better than a loss for you and you're not going to win, then sure. Though I do kind of doubt that if you have the Marauding Raptor, Polyraptor combo, that you can't just like wait a turn and see if you draw something that wins with that instead of just happens.
Well, what if somebody removes your stuff or something and then now you can no longer attain a moral victory?
That's fair.
Yeah.
There's a possibility. There's a risk you would have to take. But
trying to think if I've ever attained a moral victory. I don't think I have.
Well, I mean, talk about people with shitty ass morals,
Yeah.
I think the thing that really seals that being an irritating play is that they tutored for the Marauding Raptor. Like, couldn't you have tutored for another?
Yeah, that
you
part's
could tutor for
lame.
another good dinosaur.
If you're tutoring, just win.
Yeah, just tutor for a real win con. Like, tutor for something good, Get some pant laser triggers. Like, get that valued, baby. Win the game. Don't just end the game. Well, would you guys like a third and final story here?
I would love a third and final story, Sam.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's fucking do it. So this one comes to us from our buddy Neos Red, and the post is titled, "Wait, you guys are playing Removal?" And this is a long one, so let's all buckle in. And the story goes, "Hey all, Red here. This is my first story I'm uploading, so sorry for anything I do wrong, i.e. grammatical mistakes. It's your not-so-typical Friday. None of my regular play group could meet up to jam some cardboard, so me and my younger brother decided to hit the town and check out some of the local game stores to play some Magic with some strangers. After hitting one joint, whoa, hello.
Whoa, we can't talk about that.
Wow, a marijuana cig? Oops. I don't even smoke, but I love the way it smells. People who know Limp Bizkit are going crazy right now. That's a great Limp Bizkit lyric. Fred Durst says that in a Limp Bizkit song where he's trying to be edgy and talk about weed, but he also knows that like young teenagers are listening to it. So he's like, I don't smoke, but I do like how weed smells. And it's like, oh man, that's cool, Fred Durst. Good job. After hitting one joint, we decided to leave after being unable to find a group. So we decided to go to the big store in our town, usually filled with Commander players and the such. After hanging out for a little bit, we run into two people looking to jam a game. Sweet, I said. What power level we rocking? I asked. Upgraded precons, they responded. Okay, cool. What kind of upgrades? Oh, nothing much, like a Shockland or two. Okay, cool, I say, pulling out my new Scooby-Doo themed dog typal deck. No fast mana, no infinite combos, a majority of my land base enters tapped. Player 1 is me on Sophia Dogged Detective. Player 2 is my younger brother on Ian Malcolm Chaotician. Player 3 on Wise Mothman. And Player 4 on Morska Undersea Sleuth. A lot of MKM stuff here. We shuffled up and got to playing. I kept a pretty mediocre hand with a couple of tapped lands and like 3 removal spells. I play turn 1, tap land, and pass. Brother, land, pass. Player 3 does the same thing. Player 4 plays an island, Soul Ring, and Talisman. There's always one, I guess. The next turn is pretty uneventful. However, on turn 3, the player on Wise Mothman drops a 1 ring. Just a couple of shocks, huh? I asked jokingly. Yeah, there's a little bit of spice in here, he responds. I nod my head, knowing now that I have to keep these two in check. The Morska player starts to pop off and attempts to cast a Chulane, Teller of Tales. He attempts to cast another creature, and in response, I cast a Path to Exile. Okay, I still get a trigger, he says, and he tries to draw a card. Wait, I say, we have to resolve the Path to Exile effect. Okay, it resolved. I'm now getting my trigger. Okay, but you still have to get your land out of your deck. A little back and forth, and the guy finally gets his land and then draws a card. The Wise Mothman starts to get a little scary. He tries to cast a mutant. Okay, I'd like to cast Stroke of Midnight targeting your Mothman, I say. In response, Orcish Bowmasters? Okay, didn't realize that came in a precon, lol. He dings me for one, and we move on. It gets to my brother's turn, and he had cast an OG Ral Zarek and a stolen strategy. Off of my deck, he rips a farewell, just in the nick of time, as both players had kind of overextended, and the one ring already had 4 counters on it. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier. My brother is fairly new to Magic and only really started playing a few months ago. So I kind of help him walk through his turns in his game, saying, hey, definitely exile all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments to leave your planeswalker alone. I am already well out of this game anyways, having only 2 dogs out on the field. When both players saw the farewell, a large sigh came from them. That card never should have been printed, one said. A commander player complaining about board wipes? Tell me something that's new. Our turns go on fairly easily over the next few turns. My brother rips an Inexorable Tide from the Mothman's library. He also had found some pieces from his own deck that let him play some spells from exile for free. He then ulted Ral, getting 2 extra turns out of the 5 coin flips. The Morska player scoops and lets out a large sigh. This next one I'm not going to lose, he says, pulling out a new deck. I kind of roll my eyes in response. The Mothman player throws down his cards. Why did you remove my Mothman? I could have had an answer for this. Dude, you said my 6/6 dog with trample was an issue and were coming at me every single time with it. Both players properly scooped, and my little brother hit me over the head with a large dinosaur, winning the game. We quickly left the LGS. I hope to never see those 2 individuals again. Why do some people take casual Commander games so seriously and lie about their deck's power level? Obviously, when they say it was an upgraded precon, I try to grab something lower in power, and my little brother only builds out of bulk cards I give him, and we stated that at the beginning of the game. Thank you for reading my story. Much love, from Red. Some twists and turns in this story.
It's an interesting thing because a lot of the things that those players are saying, it's a very common story. Someone being like, okay, I only put a couple extra things in, and then the thing showing up and being like,
yeah,
okay, I put a little bit of spice in. But there's also like a world where that's kind of normal. Like if someone says they upgraded a precon, they're not putting worse cards into a precon. And if they're a modern precon, precons are pretty decent. So you're going to expect that the cards that went into it are pretty good. Those cards in particular are like the very top end of cards that you can slot into a precon, right? They're like things that are definitely not a normal part of the strategy.
Yeah.
They don't lean into Mothman at all. They're just really good cards in those colors. So this person is definitely stretching it, but there is something about someone like playing a slightly powerful card and being a little cheekily like, oh, maybe I put some spice in. That's actually not far outside of the norms, I feel like, of what's okay in Commander play. But the following stuff of like tilting and raging about the then underpowered decks kind of catching up by playing their farewell and stuff like that. That part is outside of the norms. That stuff that's ridiculous. Like if you're going to bring heat, you got to be ready for it.
Like I agree with your first point to some extent. I think it still depends on how you say it though. Like when you ask someone what kind of upgrades and they say, oh, nothing much, just a shock land or
shocks.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not the One Ring and fucking Orcish Bowmasters, dude.
Yeah.
It's not like the 2 most busted cards to hit like the meta in most formats in a very long time. Like it's more than a couple of shocklands. Like even if they just said it's an upgraded precon and they were like, what kind of upgrades? And you're like, I put some spice in. That right there, that has bought you an alibi. But to be like, oh, nothing much, just a shockland or 2, like fuck off. That's not a shockland. That's not even a land.
I feel like I've gotten to a point now where when people say that, I ask, and I think it's because we read so many stories like this where they're like, oh, I upgraded a precon. I'm okay, well, with what?
Yeah.
What's your vibe? Like, did you add silly little janky shit, or did you add the One Ring and Orcish Bowmasters? Like,
yeah.
Just so I know where to go with this, because I have things that can play with that, but like I don't want to pull out bullshit if you're gonna pull out some heat. It's become common, and I think it's unfortunate, but it feels like you have to like pull it out of people now and be like, okay, well, what does that mean to you?
Yeah,
and then which is usually how I frame it as well. It's like, okay, well, what does upgraded mean to you? Like, how many cards we talking? Like, what are you trying to do?
Or even even like loosely talking about dollar value can sometimes suss that out. I mean, it's not always a sure thing, but if you were like, okay, like how much money did you spend upgrading it? And if they were like, oh, like $200, you'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
Well, now I know what kind of deck to get, you know?
I put 1 Badlands in.
Yeah, that would be really funny. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a bigger like rule zero conversation here that we don't necessarily need to get into, but like there's only so much you can do to suss out that shit. You ask someone what kind of upgrades, and if they just lie to you,
So be it.
it's not like you can drill down deeper to get the truth. And I also don't think that you should have to grill people to like understand that shit. Like these people just wanted to play an imbalanced game, and that's unfortunate, but that's what they did, you know, and they still fucking lost. They scooped like little babies to a farewell, like, and some extra turns.
Yep.
It was sad to flip so many coins and only get 2.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So that's Ral Zarek, like the original one. When he ults, you flip 5 coins and you take a extra turn for every heads that you get.
Isn't it 7 coins?
Is it 7? I think it's 5.
Maybe it's 5.
Said 5 in the story.
Yeah, Ral Zarek, -7, flip 5 coins, take an extra turn after this one for each coin that comes up.
No, it's 7.
Heads.
I'm gonna flip 7 coins actually.
It's a moral victory, really.
It's a moral.
It's really a
victory.
moral victory.
The other last 2 coins are for my high morals.
You can flip 7. It's just that only the first 5 count.
Yeah. I'm gonna flip 7 and take the best 5. So
Yeah, flip 7 coins, pick 5. I love that like the new player ended up getting this planeswalker out. I'm not a huge fan of Farewell either, but like I think it's pretty common that that's a pretty divisive card for commander players because it can just be such a blowout. But in this situation, like busting a Farewell, having a planeswalker on the battlefield, and ripping an inexorable tide off someone's deck. If people don't know what that does, it's every time you cast a spell, you proliferate. So having a planeswalker out, you're going to hit that ult super, super fast with inexorable tide out. That's a classic from like Mirrodin Besieged or something like that. Or maybe it's New Phyrexia back in the day. Either way, I like that play happened and that the newer player got to navigate that and kind of do a little reverse pub stomp. Not that I think this is like a big pub stomp. I think this is just like a little cheeky. I think the other weird thing here that we didn't talk about is like that interaction with the Chu Lane, you know?
Yeah.
That's like the small salt where it's like the vibe from the other person is weird.
Yeah.
Where you're like, can we just resolve the stack? And they're like, okay, now I draw the card. And you're like, no, you got to get the land. Okay, now I draw that. It's like, come on, just let my spell resolve.
Yeah. But it also just like kind of indicates like the kind of level of miscommunication you can have with someone. Like sometimes you and a random stranger are not going to understand each other very well off the rip. Like that's sort of the reality of it. And at an LGS, like sometimes that's fine and you don't need to play with that person very much. Or maybe you'll learn partway through the game better ways to communicate with them and you can continue to play. Or like maybe they're actually great and you vibe immediately, but there is going to be that whole range of people. And just choosing that option of like, okay, this isn't someone I want to play again. That is one of the possible outcomes of one of these games that you're signing up for at an LGS.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you guys were too weed high and you were incomprehensible. You know, did you consider that?
Yeah. Maybe you were really stinky and they were like, what's up with these stinky stoners? I don't want to play Magic against them.
You're like, whoa, man, what kind of upgrades, dude?
You're like, dude, I think you gotta get your land still for your
bro.
path.
My path has to resolve, dude.
dude, you know what you should do? You should definitely exile all enchantments and artifacts and creatures, so it's like just your planeswalker.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
shit.
would be annoying. That would be annoying.
That would be really annoying to face someone like that.
So what do we think about the Sol rating here on this one?
To me, this is the expected salt. This is the salt of going out, getting some Five Guys. You get that big fucking giant bag of fries, and you get to the bottom, and there's just that like the Cajun seasoning just all sits at the bottom, and it's just like a big salt bath. And you're eating that, and you're like, damn, these ones are way saltier than the other ones. It's like, yeah. What'd you expect? Like, you're going to come across the extra salty fry in the bag every once in a while, you know? Like, it's just something that happens. Someone was a little dishonest with power level. And then, surprise, surprise, usually those people are the ones that whine about things not going their way.
Yeah. You ever eat fries? Like, I think Wendy's specifically is when this happened to me. You're like eating your fries, you're kind of going to town a little bit. You're not grabbing one like at a time. You're like grab a handful, you're shoving it all in your mouth. Next thing you know, you accidentally got like a salt packet that they put in the fucking fries.
That's never happened to me.
No.
That sounds
No.
miserable, dude.
Oh, man,
I haven't
it
been
was
munching
wicked
salt
unpleasant.
packets ever.
Yeah, that definitely happened to me in the past, and it was not cool. It was not cool.
Are you
dude.
sure it was a salt packet?
Oh, I know it was a salt packet.
Dude, that was an assassination attempt, man. That was, someone had it out for you, dude. A salt packet in your fries? That's diabolical, man.
Yeah.
Usually
That's
I'm
fucked
driving and I'm fucking like troughing that shit down my gullet, you know, with one hand. Like I'm not inspecting
it's
my
like-
food.
Imagine a fucking packet of salt just in there, and you just like,
Yeah, I'm not like rolling
Brutal.
perception checks on my food for traps, you know. I'm just
yeah,
I'm just slamming it.
Oh man.
Sometimes you need to. One time I got a street pizza in Morocco and it had a plastic bag in it.
Ooh.
That's
Yeah.
In the
Sometimes
in
you
the
gotta-
pizza
In the pizza. Like baked into the dough. So
Oh my
sometimes
God.
you gotta roll
Baked into the
perception on
dough?
your food. Yeah. Yeah. We were later like, I wonder if they kept that around just for like tourists or
Yeah,
if
don't come here.
Yeah,
come here
or like
again.
if they just messed up
Yeah,
genuinely.
or something
no
just
idea.
happened.
Damn, dude. They're like, you've heard of microplastics? How about some macroplastics?
Yeah,
for you?
how about just plastic?
It's just munch on the sheet, dude. Oh man.
Yeah, well, is it that time of the week?
Ooh, Tony, let me check. I think it is that time of the week.
Oh, baby. The time comes every week, right? Oh, shit.
That's my line, you
I
bastard.
know.
It's
It
only
was
been a
too
month.
late. It had already come out.
It's
I
the
couldn't
time of
take
the
it
week.
back.
It's the time of the week that comes every week.
Every fucking week, baby.
It's the time of the week where we say, Mike,
Mike.
what's the salty card of the week?
The salty card of the week this week is
You told me it was a 7, but it's 2-3, and you're covering me with an underworld bleach. Is it casual now? You stack space and you play MLD, and your spells are all free. Is it casual now? I know what you tell your friends, that it's casual. It's casual now. That there cannot be a 7. That's not casual. Not casual now.
And that is a cover of Casual by Chapel Roan, requested from our patron, Mr. Lebowski, who provided lyrics, which I greatly appreciate. I only changed like one or two. Actually provided lyrics for the whole fucking song. So which is like amazing. I love it.
I do like Chapel Roan.
yeah, chaperone's great.
I love Chapel Roan. I've become like incredibly Chapel Roan pilled. Like just quick aside, we have like a music league in our Patreon Discord where if people don't know what music leagues are, you get like usually a weekly prompt with like a theme. Everyone submits songs anonymously. You listen to the playlist and stuff like that. Well, obviously I've been pretty busy with the baby and stuff, so I haven't really been participating. And like the weeks leading up to the baby being born, I was also not really participating, but I was trying. There was this one week where it was like your jam of the summer, and I didn't have something to post. And here's something you might not know about me. I love Plankton AI song covers where they make like Plankton sing the song. I fucking love them. I feel like it's the one good thing that AI does, other than if it does your taxes or like fills out your spreadsheets for you. So I was just like jokingly, can I submit that fucking Plankton song? And it was Pink Pony Club, but Plankton singing it. And I was like, can I submit this Pink Pony Club song? And they were like, haha. And then I found it on Spotify and I was like, oh, shit, I can. So I did. And the epilogue to that story is that Pink Pony Club did become my song of the summer because of
The
that.
non-plankton version or the plankton version?
Both, honestly. I kind of interchanged them. And that also got me super into Chapel Roan. And now I'm just like obsessed. So, anywho. Got to look up that track. I'll put that in the show notes. The Plankton Pink Pony Club. I'll put that in the show notes.
When this part gets cut because there's too much, it'll still just be that in the show notes.
Pink Plankton Club or whatever the fuck it's called. Anywho.
Well, thanks, Sam. That was a lovely salty song of the week.
Thank you, Mike.
Salty card of the week this week is it's 1 white for an instant. It says your opponents can't cast spells this turn.
Silence.
Oh, that was a little joke, Mike. That was a little jokey joke. You were silent.
I was, but I'm no longer. So, Tony, what do you think about silence?
Silence is an interesting one. It has definitely made me sad in the past. No questions.
I know
that. Has it made me salty, though, is an interesting question. I first discovered this card like way back in my 60 card days because I wanted to make a white-red burn deck. And I was running 4 copies of silence in it so that on people's upkeep, I could just like silence them and just like kind of try and gain an extra turn in essence almost, because that's almost effectively, depending upon like board states and things, how that works a little bit in a 1v1. Yeah, I mean, white doesn't get much. They've gotten way more recently. So like it feels hard to be like, fuck this card. And I actually think I don't even hate it. It's like, it's got a lot of utility. And I think it can play in casual maybe, but there's probably not too many instances where it's actually going to help you. So it really tends to just live in CDH as like a protection piece on your own turns. So it's interesting that it feels like it only fits in high power games and doesn't really just generically fit in like all casual decks.
Yeah.
In casual, if you're playing this on your turn, like pretty decent chance other people weren't going to interact with you anyway.
Yeah.
And if you're playing it on someone else's turn, it's like, why are you focusing one player down? It's casual. Like just do your shit.
Yeah.
Like,
not to mention they'll probably be like, okay, well now I'll just swing all my creatures at you instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
And so I think it's just an interesting card, actually. And like how it plays and what it does is also interesting to me. Those are my thoughts on it. So it doesn't really make me salty, I don't think. But I do feel like I'm thinking about it. I'm like, does this make me salty? Like, it's interesting.
Sam, what about you? Does it make you salty?
Yeah, I feel the same way as Tony. I think this is like a really interesting card. There's definitely been instances where it's made me salty because of the circumstances. Like I'm going for a win in CDH and somebody pops this in my upkeep and I'm just like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I guess nothing. And I pass the turn. Like, it's just one of those cards that can take the wind out of your sails immediately before a big, crazy turn. But it does have a weird home in casual. It becomes like a very fringe situational interaction piece. It's not always going to be something that you want to cast. And I think, maybe you put it in like high power casual sort of like trash magic decks and where things are a little bit more interactive and it sees a little bit more utility. But if you like upgraded a precon and just drop this in, I think you would have a lot of turns where you are just sort of like, what is this supposed to be doing? Like I'm casting it's not really doing anything. It definitely doesn't make me salty, though. I really like this card. It's a staple in CDH, so I play it a lot. And I'm just very fond of the white cards that say, like, people can't cast spells or people can't attack or different things like that. Like those white instants that can just stop somebody from doing something for a single turn. I think it's like a really cool design space that white gets. And it's obviously like much more powerful in 1v1 because if you burn it on somebody in a 4-player game, you're really just kind of hosing one person. But I do love that kind of space that white gets where it's like, you just can't do this one thing for a single turn. Yeah. It's literally a time walk. It's like wait a whole fucking turn, Yeah.
Play land and ship it.
Yep. Play the land, attack maybe. That's it.
Funny, the Stacks player likes the cards that say players can't do things.
Fuck you.
What about you, Mike?
I love this card. I chose this one just because this is the first time my eye saw this card on the list. And I was just so shocked to see it on here. Yeah. I get it. Like I can see people getting salty about this being played. And there's definitely moments where it can feel really bad when people misplay this card. If someone else can do a bunch of things, but then one of their opponents silences, but then that stops player 3 from interacting because the silence was there. Like, there are some things that can feel really bad with this card. So I get it. But I love this one. I think I talked about it in our top 5 white cards extra salt, which you could catch on our Patreon. I think it's at least in the runner-ups, but I talked about it there, I'm pretty sure, because I just think it's excellent. I'll sound like a broken record, but I love cards that have really simple rules text that do something massive. And this is that. Your opponents can't cast spells this turn. Boom. One sentence has a huge impact on the game. 1 mana. Amazing. Love it. I also love it because I too had an early deck of mine that I was running a 4 set of this in. And just because like I was playing a lot when M14 was like getting printed, I think it maybe had a printing in like M10 too. Let me see.
Yeah, M10, M11.
Yeah, I was playing a lot in M10. So I just like had a bunch of copies of it and definitely played this in my core deck. Not even realizing it was an instant and I could play it on other people's turns. Just I'll play this at the beginning of my turn and then I'll play a bunch of pump creatures and I'll swing in for big damage and no one will be able to deal with it.
No one guaranteed really safe.
No one will be able to fog. And then I'll be really set.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I feel like I also thought initially that it meant lands couldn't get played. And when I found out that they could, I was like, damn it.
That would be wild.
Spoiled yet again.
I also think it's one of those cards that people misinterpret all the time. Like, especially new Magic players. Like, it's definitely one of those things that people will put spells on the stack and then you hit them with a silence and you're like, you can't cast spells. Well, guess all those spells don't resolve. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't really work that way. But that is like a very common.
Yes.
It's one of those funny, like, Llanowar puts a force into play kind of shit.
Definitely also happened. I was like, your spell fizzles now.
Yeah. Where you're like, this one simple trick. The last thing I want to say about it is just the art is iconic. I think the art is fucking that Wayne Reynolds art with like the shocked person mouth. With no mouth. It's just it's like some Neo in the Matrix shit. It's fucking dope.
It's so good.
It definitely is.
So Mike, where does this fall in the top 300 salty cards off of EDH Rec?
Why don't you try and tell me where you think it falls?
I have my guess right here.
I have mine right here.
Ooh. And the guesses are?
Mine is 200.
269, baby.
Nice. Nice. The weed number.
Sam takes it. Barely. Is 232.
232?
Oh, wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
That was tight, dude, like man.
Yep.
It's one of the tighter ones we've had.
Yeah, your boy's back. You know, it's just like, fuck, you know, it was the time away. The time away, I was really resting my mind, resting my body. It's just all for the love of the game.
Again.
All for the love of the game.
You just had your baby doing flashcards on the top 300 salty cards for you the whole time.
Her first words are going to be collector oof.
That would be low-key amazing.
That would be so disturbing to me. I'd be like, not dad, not mom. Like, come on.
Yeah. I will say one of the funniest things about this card is this is the first card that shows up on the salty card list that we've seen where the top 9 commanders for it are partner pairs, because this is that much of a CDH staple. People will run partners that add white so that they can play silence.
Yeah.
It's that much a part of the CDH format. So I think, a lot of our joint of that card probably comes from all 3 of us playing white a fair bit in CDH and kind of liking that as a play pattern and thinking it's fair that white gets silence. But it is hilarious that it is the top 9 commanders for it are partner pairs.
And the ones after that, I pulled it up. The ones after that are Winota, Najeela, Lavinia, Cole the Forge Master, Heliod Suncrowns, Minsk Beloved Ranger, Rocco, Tivit, Elsha. They're literally all just CDH commanders.
Yeah, every single one.
They don't even list one that isn't a CDH commander.
Which is like ties back to what I was saying. It's like it's interesting that it is found its place in CDH, but is just like not useful in casual, unlike many of these other cards. Like it can
It
certainly
has
serve
its
a purpose,
place
but
there.
like
Yeah,
it's much more on the rare side, I would say.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
If for no other reason, to your point earlier, Mike, of like, sure, you cast it, you protect yourself in your turn, that's great. They probably weren't going to do anything anyway.
Yeah, if they only had sorcery speed interaction, that silence really did not matter.
And if they were me, they didn't even have interaction to begin with. So like,
yeah, period.
and it's not even in the deck.
yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for the salty card of the week. Thanks for playing.
Well, thanks, Mike. That was a lovely salty card. And thank you to all of our lovely prospectors out there. Thank you for being supportive, for being an amazing community. Thank you for being patient while I took my little paternity leave, even though for many of you, you probably didn't even fucking notice, but I do still appreciate you. And you know we got to shout them out, our Salt Packet Plus tier members. And this week we have Optimus Prime, Rothbox, Sire Speedy, Bobo Fett, Remstone, Captain Cross, Elgo Fogel, Clearbrook, D. Beeson, Gilgamesh, Doug's Dad, Bark Bark, Pez, Swankub, The Quiet One, and Vok. Thank you all for being just so amazing. And thank you to all the other prospectors out there for tuning in every single week to Howling Salt Mine and hanging out with us here in the mine. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope it was entertaining, educational. You laughed, you cried, you shitted and farted.
Oh,
What? Go back to your baby.
yeah.
Hey, she does that a lot. Let me tell you. If you want more Howling Salt Mine in your life, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Howling Salt Mine. We have a bunch of bonus content on there. If you want to join at our $7 tier, if you want to just hop in the Discord and hang out with us, you can hop in at the $3 tier. We've got a bunch of fun stuff going on in the Discord. We've got monthly game nights. We're talking about spoilers. People are just pulling pods together pretty much every day now. There seems to be a pod ripping games almost every single day of the week, which is pretty dope.
I played 4 games on Saturday.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's
That's
amazing.
fucking great. Won all
Yeah.
3 CDH games.
Hell yeah, dude. Even better. It's a really good time. Talk about spoilers, talk about food, talk about your pets. If you want to hang out with us and hang out with the other prospectors and get more involved in the community, that's the place to do it. If you want tokens sent to you every month, check out our monthly token club. And thank you to everybody who was a member of that and was patient while we put it on pause for a little bit. While I was on paternity leave, those tokens are coming back out to you soon. We should be all squared up by the end of September, so keep an eye out for that shit. Another way that you can help support the show outside of Patreon is to send us your salty stories. Like I mentioned, we have our website, which has a form that you can send those on. You'll find our website in the show notes. It's howlingsaltmine.com or thehowlingsaltmine.com. You can also email it to us at our Gmail, which is thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. See, I told you that we're inconsistent with the. That's a perfect example. Another way that you can support the show is to give us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app of choice, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. That is going to help our podcast stick out in the algorithm. It's going to help us be suggested to new listeners. It's really one of the ways that we can grow organically in that great algorithm that controls everything, just controls all of us, man. Man, think about it. It's fucking crazy. And another way you can help us out is to check out our Bonfire store where you can buy our merchandise, or check out Jank Mats where you can buy our playmats. I'm hoping to get some new playmat designs up there. I've been drawing up a storm to get caught up on things now that I'm coming back to work. So keep an eye out for that stuff. Also saying this here just to keep myself a little bit honest with that shit. Lastly, we got to shout him out, our buddy Devin Burnett, for just being an amazing friend, an amazing tattoo artist, and for drawing our beautiful podcast art and gifting it to us way back when. If you're ever in Asheville, North Carolina, hit him up and get a tattoo. He's a really dope dude.
10,000 subscribers are bust.
Indeed.
Bow.
Well, thanks again, everybody. And as always, stay salty. And don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, would you guys like a third and final story here?
I would
Yeah.
love a third and final. Oh,
We have an EP pistachio boy.
EP
over
I'll
there?
have a third and final
boy.
story, Sam.
Let's take that again.
You talked for 2 minutes longer than I needed you to. I had such an insightful thing to say a moment ago, and then you had like one extra sentence. I'm totally lost. It's
Oh no.
awful.
It's that Diet
Awful.
Coke I drank. Got me all hopped up.
Let me drink some water. Maybe it's just a fluid imbalance overall.
Play 1 is me on Sophia, Dog Detective.
Wait, is this Flood?
Yeah, right. Flood under an alias.
If you want to throw that earlier.
Yeah,
I was waiting for it. I was waiting
know.
for it.